Hi everybody! So before the actual video begins, I want you all to know that I recently went to the nearest dollar store and bought myself a ton of cheap art supplies. So with these cheap art supplies, I plan on using them as challenge videos for a new series with these, I think it's gonna be kind of like a cheap art supply challenge thing, but a series because there's so many of them. But I need your help. In the comments below, tell me which character and what items you want to see me use in this upcoming videos for this series. But yeah, that's basically it. So let's continue on with the real video, shall we? So for these challenges, I decided to really commit to the cheap art supplies so that I'm not using any of my fancy paper either. I'm using the Premier Sketchpad A4 200 pages that they have there in the dollar store. At the same time, I'm using normal pencils as well. So I got these really cool neon wood pencils. I just like them because of the colors. And for the line art, if I do line art, I have these basic black ballpoint pens. I like the colors as well. I like the pastel. And yeah, that's basically it. There's really even nothing in the back. So the main materials that I'm using to color though in this piece are these markers. They're blatantly obvious. It's Liquimark and Play School, I think. Liquimark says washables, you know, the fancy schmancy stuff apparently. And the fact that it's washable, it's definitely catered to kids because kids will use this and draw on everything. So that's why it's really important. I think on the left hand side I thought it was like, oh, that's really interesting, because it's, I think, teacher approved and parent approved or something like that, and I'm just realistically, I'm like, aren't they the same? Nothing really special about these markers while I was reading the back. But yeah, as you can tell, the colors are what they give you. It's only 8 colors. I'm a little bit more excited to work with these Studio Art markers. It's a 24-piece set, really straightforward. I think that's what I like about the dollar store items or cheap art supplies. They're just straightforward and they just tell you what they are. But the quality, it'll definitely tell you what they are based off of quality alone. And you'll see that later on in this video. So the big issue now is whether will these colors actually match. They come from different kind of brands, if you want to call it that way. So we'll see how it goes. So the first thing you gotta do when you got new art supplies is to test them out. And so this is what I'm doing with all of these supplies. I'm giving them a little bit, not a review, but kind of like a refresher of what these supplies are really like. So I'm starting off simply with a ballpoint pen, and I am not surprised. It's basically a pen. I was more concerned about actually the pencils, because the tendency for cheap pencils is that the eraser at the end of the pencil is going to be like basically hard plastic. You can't really pick up with those, and those type of cheap erasers actually smudge the pencil markings. So the lead itself on the pencil is basic. I don't see anything wrong with it. But here I'm now testing the eraser, and it actually didn't do that bad. It picks up pretty well, and I'm like, you know what, I'm impressed. So if you ever need pencils from the dollar store for school, definitely go there because they got some quality eraser. So at this point, I'm now going to test out these colors of these markers and basically see the consistency of these, you know, dollar markers. I'm so used to Copics, I'm so used to Prismas that this was definitely a culture shock to some degree for me. So I'm starting with the Liquimark markers. Oh, that's redundant, but oh well. So I'm testing out all of these colors, writing simple things that kind of practice all the things I could do with these markers. So the first one was writing. Basically, whatever I write, can I write with it? Is it pretty nice, pretty even? Basic coloring where it's just filling out the blanks. And then I drew a square. I don't know why I just felt like drawing a square. That one I actually have no explanation for. But this I think the fourth one of the test is the layering test. And after 2 layers of filling these or testing out these colors, they started to actually ruin the paper. So it gave me a little mental note. I cannot do more than 2 layers. Surprisingly enough, after doing all these colors, it didn't bleed on to the next page. And there was a faint visual of the colors on the other side. So overall, the Liquimark markers, for the limited colors that they have and the basic use that they do pretty well. So if you need basic markers, you can get them. The blue is not my favorite. I love the color, but I don't think it's blue. Unlike these larger markers by Play School. And so with this one, I was kind of surprised with the brush tip. It's very deep set to me. It's kind of like basically a cone as the tip of the marker. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't like it, but the colors for the larger markers were more intense in my opinion than the liquid markers, which is good. You know, this is giving me some like options when creating a new art piece. That means I have like different variants of similar colors, so maybe I can shade, but in a softer way. But yeah, if you notice, between Play School and Liquimark, their colors are generally close but slightly different. I actually compare a little bit. But overall, these colors match, sort of, with their cap. You know, it's Roy G. Biv. It's the rainbow. You can't go wrong. But with this one, I compared the 2 together so I can figure out what I'm doing. And so I have definitely 2 different blues. Every other color is fine except the brown, the black. The brown, the black on the Liquimark is actually more intense than the Play School one. So with the larger set, I'm actually going to cut that and like jump into it a little bit faster, because these markers kind of reminded me why I actually didn't like using these markers. Every time I used them, it felt like I was kind of scraping chalk onto no, not even chalk. I think chalk's smoother than this. It was like this rough brush or stick, twig on a piece of paper, and I tried blending it. It didn't blend, obviously, but there was possibility there, and that's kind of like what I was kind of looking for. So this next step is actually really simple. Now I am testing out all the markers with the ballpoint pen. I wanted to see whether these 2 different materials will bleed into each other or smudge in any way. Now, to my surprise, they did not, which is great. But the scary thing was that the middle heart actually bled through the paper on the other side, that it almost started to rip, that I was freaking out. But at this point, I have tested all of the materials. I have a pretty good idea of what I want to do, but I struggled, and I struggled hard. So let's go! So, taking inspiration from the comments from my Instagram, I decided to draw Star Butterfly from Star versus the Forces of Evil. Now, this character has actually a huge closet full of different outfits. I found this out because I'm actually working on a small project on the side where I'm kind of like drawing her entire closet right now of outfits, but that's like a hint for something in the future. Cough, cough, hint, hint. Alright, back to the video. So, after I outlined it with the ballpoint pen, everything was doing fine, you know. The lines weren't as clean as I'd like it to be, but, you know, you are limited with what you can do with a ballpoint pen to some degree, but overall, you can still do great stuff. Coloring in the hair was a challenge, but I admit I'm actually really happy with the way it is. You can definitely tell by the paper, because of how thin the paper is. It's buckling and it can't handle all the ink that I'm applying, because I'm attempting in this case a way to layer by lightly adding in different basically layers on top of each other when they're not built to be that way. This paper specifically cannot handle it. Well, even though it struggled, even though I was really careful and like daintily applying the color, it ended up pretty well, and I really liked the outcome. So in this case, this is where I kind of cheated. Sorry. This is why I actually have 2 drawings. So watch the entire video because there's 2 speed paints in one, technically. In this case, I saw a couple years ago an artist who used markers and kind of like used it as a watercolor. And so I was like, you know what, I can try to do that too with my cheap oranges, because just a faint amount of orange is already a skin tone. So I thought, okay, I can totally do this. You know, like, wow, who is ever watching this? So I really attempted. The sad part is, though, the tool that I'm using is not $1, so it breaks the entire purpose of this challenge, which I am only supposed to use cheap art supplies from the dollar store, basically. And I did not get it from the dollar store. I got this tool from basically the online art stores that I buy from all the time. So I cheated, but I committed, and I wanted to see how it was going to go using this method. Obviously, like I said before, this paper cannot handle a lot of water. So as I was doing this, I was getting like slight heart attacks or like anxiety attacks because the paper was oh my gosh, it's like it was what's the word? Bulking? Basically, it wasn't going as planned. The tint that I applied was just disappearing quickly, and that's mainly because it's freaking washable ink. I should have realized this. So I fast forward a bit and jumped in the future, waited for the water to dry because I was freaking out a little bit. I was like, oh my god, I need to take a break. But after seeing the outcome, I can notice that the paper got wrinkly. The tint that I was trying to get only faintly stayed on the paper, and so I was like, oh, whatever. So at this point, I am just playing around. I don't know whether I like the techniques that I did with this latter part of the process, but this one was definitely a learning process. I'm actually kind of impressed with the crown at the top. It looks like it's shaded, but it's more of like it just kind of it bled to each other, the colors, so it worked in my favor to some degree. Now, as you can tell, I am like adding heavy lines and sketch marks all over it. This picture now that was supposed to be originally dainty and soft. I realized with the limited colors and markers and tools that I have, I can't do something soft. I have to use these like bold colors and apply it to the best that I can possibly do in this case. And so I decided to draw Star in her prison outfit that she wore when she was like, it was like for a hot second where she was cleaning a car, because I forget even the episode, but she got herself into trouble. And so with this one, I wanted to be really drastic with the colors. I really wanted to use this, by the way, $1 marker. It was a set of permanent markers that I got from the dollar store as well. I didn't showcase it in the beginning because I didn't think I was going to use it, but because I wanted to do another test run of this challenge, I was like, you know what, I have these permanent markers. They are technically markers, and they technically were bought from the dollar store, so I'm going to try it out. So I wanted to use the black of this permanent marker, and I kind of planned out what I wanted to draw in that situation that you just saw with the colors that I wanted to use. So there's really no shading, but really more of empty and filled space, or black versus color, you know? So is this going to be a pretty star to some degree? Is this going to be a pleasant star, a fun star? Oh, no. This is going to be like the legit prison star. Like, you don't want to mess with this girl. And I'm actually really happy. This type of style of drawing, of illustrating, is something that I've never actually done. I've definitely attempted this many times, but never in a full picture or illustration to some degree, because it's really strong. The contrast between the colors and the black space is quite alarming and daunting. And when it's done well, it's a really cool poster design, and I actually have a print that's very similar to this. But if it's not done well, it can be really messy. And I think I've done okay with this, but the second attempt with these cheap markers is a lot better, or ended up being a lot better than the first one. So I'm really happy with this one, even though I feel like it could have been better. But whatever. I'm working with, in this situation, I'm working with so many elements that I'm not comfortable in. And so now I really understand why they're calling it a challenge. So as you can tell at this point, I'm filling in kind of like the lightly lined areas that I wanted the heavy black areas, the shaded areas to be. And so while I'm using this black marker, its nib, or its like brush nib type thing, is literally like a brush. There's really no fine point to it. It's like a brush, but it doesn't move and be shaped very well like a brush. So the minimal size of line that you can use with this marker, or with this permanent marker, is not really small. But I did my best. I filled in as much black areas that I wanted, and I feel like I chose the wrong tool for these finer lines that you already see. I probably should have used a different tool, but you'll see what I try to do, or I try to use to fix the situation. And so at this point, I'm doing nothing but just filling it in, just like a coloring book. I have all the colors available right now, and with this illustration, or with this drawing, I am not focusing on her skin. I did not attempt her skin this time, because this is kind of like the nice part about this styled illustration. White skin, her white skin actually pops out really well, and I wanted to keep it that way. So if you can tell, I add a lot of finer lines. Remember the really thin, the smaller markers that I had? They actually had a color black, and so I used that black and filled in those lines. And you can see a little bit better. I used the smaller red marker as well to add a little bit of blush. This drawing is definitely very messy. Both are very messy, but I'm really happy with the way it turned out. This challenge is a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to make more videos about it. So yeah, just let me know in the comments below which materials I should choose, or I should use next for the next video, and what character you want to see. So yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!